Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today on this special occasion. I'm Guillermo Schneider. Most of you know me, founder and director of Ubiquo Business School from Miami, Florida. I want to welcome all the students from Ubiquo and our special executive guests from Latin America and Europe. Thank you for being here. It's an honor to be here. Today, we have the privilege of having the visit of Mr. Dan Cockerell, as you see in the camera, former Vice President of Disney Magic Kingdom, beautiful, and author of the new books, How to Secure in Your Kingdom. And in Spanish is ¿Cómo está la cultura en tu reino? With our friend, Fran da Costa, former cast member for operation in Walt Disney World Resort. It's an honor to have you here, Mr. Dan Cockerell and Mr. Fran da Costa. Thank you for sharing your valuable experience as leaders with our audience. I leave you in good hands. You know Fran, and now you have beautiful opportunity to know this great man, Dan Cockerell. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guillermo. Thank you so much. Oh my God, I can't believe we finally got this day where I get to discuss and get to talk about this book that it's been on the making for so years now that I keep hearing about. And when I saw this little baby come in the mail and dedicated to me, I was super excited, couldn't wait to open and start reading. Dan, thank you. Thank you for being here. We have already about 300 guests signed in, and they're so excited. I've been hyping about your book on my IG account on how it's such an easy read, and it's such a routine of being a coach. It's you coaching a routine for us here, and I'm excited. How are you feeling?
It's good. We're very proud of the book. You know, it took a couple years to put together, and my wife and I both poured our hearts into it to get it done. But when I wrote the book, I talked to the publisher, and the publisher told me, he said, look, you're not the first person that's writing a book about management and leadership, so you better make it entertaining. And we have lots of stories in the book, personal stories from my 26 years at Disney. And also one of our goals was to make it very practical. We want people to be able to bring away behaviors and tactics that they can implement into their lives. And so that was one of our big focuses when we did the book.
That was awesome. I'm gonna start by saying that, you know, everybody knows that you have the Cockerell last name, and Lee has been around as well for a while. And I was under his leadership for many years with the company, and I just admire him. He's a mentor to me. And now reading your book, I'm like, this guy is a mentor to me too. So I have two mentors. But I want to hear, I know your story, but I want our audience to kind of hear a little bit your walk of life, starting from where did you start it and how you retired within the Walt Disney Company.
Sure. Well, I went to Boston University and studied political science. So, you know, a lot of people at Disney, when a lot of people in life don't do what they studied, and that was the same for me. But I was always in working, waiting tables in restaurants. I worked since I was, 12 years old, and it was I love serving. I love helping people. And so when I was in college, I had a chance to go to Walt Disney World and work there for 3 months. We have about 12,000 employees from colleges that work at Disney, and it was a great program, excellent experience. I went back to college, and when I graduated, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went back to Walt Disney World, and I got an entry-level job parking cars at Epcot. And many people that will go to Disney start at the front line, and it's really important. It's important people understand that, because that's where the value is created. It's the interaction between the frontline employees and the customers that really just let the customers decide whether they're going to come back again. And so, did that for about 6 months, and then had an opportunity to go open Disneyland Paris in France. And of course, they put me in the parking lot because that was my expertise now. And I opened the parking lot in France. And my wife is from France, so we met there. We met in Florida, and we ended up getting married, and we stayed in France for 5 years. And I worked in operations, and then moved back to Walt Disney World in 1997, and spent the next 23 years in Florida. And I had 19 different jobs over my 26-year career with Disney, always moving, always trying to learn more. And I had the opportunity to move into become the vice president of Epcot back in 2009. And then I spent 4 years at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And then the last 3 years, I was the vice president of the Magic Kingdom. So just a great opportunity to work with very talented people in a really great company. And then we have 3 kids, and our youngest is 19. And so a few years ago, we knew we were going to be by ourselves. So we made a decision. It took us a year to make that decision, but we made a decision we were going to start our own company. And I left Disney in May of 2018. And Valerie and I, my wife, we started our own consulting company. So we've been traveling the world before the pandemic. We do leadership workshops, keynote speeches. The book is now out. We've created a college course. So we have lots of materials we've created based on our experiences working for the Walt Disney Company. Valerie was a facilitator at the Disney Institute for 6 years. So we make a pretty good team now, teaching the leadership behaviors and the Disney philosophy to other companies. We've worked with healthcare companies, concrete companies, accounting firms. These principles and these approach to leadership really work in every industry.
Awesome. Wow, great. I mean, you total of 27 years together within the company. And it's funny how you say, 26. It's funny how you say you worked in 16 different positions, because as a cast member, one thing I love about Disney, you get to change your role every 6 months, and you get to learn and you get to try something different. It doesn't become that routine job that always, and that's one thing I loved about that opportunity, that they always gave you that opportunity. So you have 3 kids. They all, I know 2 is in college, correct? Or 3 already?
1 is. 2 are out of college. So one is an engineer. Yeah, one is an engineer. He works in biomed engineering up in Boston. And we have a daughter in Colorado who works in marketing. And we have a 19-year-old who's still in college. So 1 more to go.
Yeah. 1 more to go. And you play, this is a fun fact, that you're big on American football as a young kid, American kid. We all love American football, especially this time of year. This is our season.
That's right.
But you play rugby?
Rugby, yeah.
Did you? And why is that? That is such an American sport.
Yeah. Well, up in New England, rugby in college and universities is very popular. And so I played football for a year in college, and I wasn't good enough to play American football at the college level, but I still wanted to tackle people. So I joined the rugby team, and it was fantastic. Rugby is not only a great sport, but it's just a great social piece to it. You get to, after the matches, you drink beer with the other team and you celebrate together. You're trying to kill each other, but then an hour later you're drinking a beer together. And it's an international sport. So I played in France while I lived over there. And my wife and I went to the Rugby World Cup in Japan just 2 years ago. And you meet people from all over the world. It's a great sport, and it's a great, I've never met a rugby player I don't like.
That is a fun. See, I don't know much about rugby. I always thought it was like a European sports. I'm from New York, so us up in the north, it's all about baseball, football, and basketball. Other than that, we don't know anything else. Soccer started a little bit. So let's dive into this amazing book. Well, first of all, I want to say that number one, you did 2 amazing things on this book. I love that you dedicated to me. And then you actually dedicated to me again by dedicating to all the cast members of Walt Disney World Resort. That was very thoughtful of you to dedicate this book to all the cast members. Why would that be in your mind? Why are us cast members so important while you were leading 12,000 cast members for Magic Kingdom and the other parks that you work in as a leader?
Yeah, well, I think, every company relies on its employees to represent the company. Whether you're in a call center or a reception desk or in hospitality or a hospital, Your frontline employees are the ambassadors of your company, and they are so important. And everyone, like guests, customers rate every time they interact with your company, whether it's in person or online. They make a decision on your brand, and you either add to your brand or you take away from your brand based on the quality of that interaction. And so when I worked at the Magic Kingdom, I understood very clearly it was really important that I created a great environment for my team to work in, that they were trained, that they were supported, that we listened to them and got them what they needed to do their jobs. And in return, they would do a great job, take care of the guests, and I would benefit because that's what was my responsibility. So it's a give and take, and it's we're all in this together to execute this. And that's the great thing about Disney. We have something called the common purpose. We all have different jobs, different roles, but everyone knows you're all there to create these great memories for the guests, and that's everybody's purpose. And when you have that kind of alignment, it really makes you feel like a team. And so I always knew that if my employees performed well, my life was going to be easier. And it was not only the right thing to do, but it's a business strategy. You have to take care of your people because they're your company. They are your emissaries, and they're going to be your success or your failure.
Awesome. That is what I always say. So I chose 3 chapters of your book that really impacted to me. And I decided I'm going to ask you the question because they impacted. Those are the ones that I really, the whole book is amazing. I love the way you set up the books from the beginning to explaining not only the physical well-being, the mental fitness, the moral fitness, the organization and prioritization. It's so escalated and it's so organized for a leader to be coached. It's a routine of coaching it. I really love the how you put it together. And doing each of this coaching, there's a fun fact, a fun story. I actually really love a story. I don't know what chapter it is in top of my mind, but when you will open the park, when Magic Kingdom will open in the morning, and everybody will run to Starbucks, and how the F&B, the food and beverage team, created a concept of creating a little kiosk in front of Starbucks using Joffrey's coffee, which is I think is a competition of Starbucks. And they were just making it so easy because Starbucks is a process. You got to go in there, you got to write your name. It does take a time for the morning crowd to get their coffee, but you guys, the leadership with the food and beverage, create a concept to get just people on their way to their attractions, on the way to enjoy the park and not stay in line for 45 minutes waiting for their coffee in the morning. I love that creativity of leadership together with the other teams around Magic Kingdom. Now, Magic Kingdom is amazing because you got entertainment, you got food and beverage, you got attraction, you got photo pass, where I used to do. So you got so many different operations and affiliations going on, and you have to oversee all those little different operations going different directions.
I think that
go ahead.
Yeah, the inspiration for that was, and we talk about this a lot, is being empathetic, being able to put yourself in the shoes of other people. And the Starbucks example, in the morning, people really want their coffee. And I heard families walking by, and they're, the mother or the father would say, "Oh, let's get a cup of coffee." And they'd say, "Well, the line's too long, let's go." And all they wanted was a black cup of coffee. And so we said, what can we do for these people? How could we, I'm going to put myself in their shoes. If I was them, I would want to have a quick cup of coffee. I don't want anything fancy. How can we fix that? And then once you put yourself in their shoes, you start thinking about it that way, and you get very creative. And I think it's so important for leaders and companies to put themselves in their employees' shoes and put themselves in their customer shoes and experience it from their point of view. And once you do that, you really see where you can make improvements in your customer experience.
And I was so impressed with it. I was like, wow, it's exactly how we have to do. We have to be that guest. And one thing I love about this is that they allow us as cast members to come in and play so we could see, hey, I could do something better here. and I want my coffee, and I don't need the latte and all that crazy stuff. I just want a black coffee, and I want to run to my attraction. And that was amazing. I love that example because you get to be that guest. The other thing was chapter 5. I love chapter 5. You being the general manager of the All-Star property, which is what, 6,000 rooms? It's amazing. It's huge.
Yeah, it's a big place. Yeah.
I take my hat off for you for being a general manager of that property, because that is the busiest property out of all the properties. And I love when you became the general manager there and you had to go through the training for assessment, something Disney does very well. We get trained. It doesn't matter what position we are, we have to get trained as if it's our first day on the job. And we get assessed. Like, they want to make sure that we learn what we got trained on. And there's an amazing story about Blanca. And Blanca was in the housekeeping. Why don't you tell that story?
Yeah, well, like you said, Frank, everyone does in-costume training when you get into your first job. And the executives do this also. So when I got to the All-Star Resort, I wanted to spend time with the frontline employees, and I wanted to learn how the hotel ran. So I spent time, my first 3 or 4 months there, training at the front desk, training in housekeeping, training in food and beverage, in recreation, learning how to clean the pools, just so I could understand the operation and get to know everybody. And so I spent 2 weeks in housekeeping, and my trainer was Blanca, and we would spend time together every day for 2 weeks. We'd go clean 18 rooms, and towards the end of the training, they gave me my own section to clean. Of course, I didn't even come close to finishing. It's a really hard job, but she came in one day, and I said, "All right, Blanca, I want you to inspect my room. How did I do my job?" And it's such a great thing at Disney where the trainer of an employee can be evaluating the general manager's performance. That's what it's all about. So she looked around the room and she found some dust and she gave me some feedback. Then she went into the bathroom and she said, "Did you clean the bathtub?" And I said, "Well, the bathtub's clean." She said, "But did you clean it?" And I said, "Well, the bathtub's clean." And she said, "Well," I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, first of all, I didn't clean the bathtub, but it is clean." And first of all, I said, "How do you know I didn't clean it?" She said, "Well, it's not wet. If it was wet, I know you'd clean it. At least put some water in there." But I said, "Why is it such a big deal?" She said, "Well, you know when the best time to clean a bathtub is? It's when it's clean. Because as soon as you get to see mold or anything build up on it, it's too late. You're too late. So you got to clean things when they're clean." And that was just an incredible statement to me, the pride she had. And I said, "Where did you learn that? Where did you learn when you clean something when it's clean to keep it clean?" She said, "My mother taught me." And that's the passion that people have for their jobs and the level of detail and the respect we need to give them, because the pride the housekeepers had and they called them their rooms. These are my rooms with my guests in them. And they were just incredible at what they did. And I was so moved by that and so impressed about the professionalism and the serious way she took her job. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was. And it just took my respect of that job to a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's amazing how housekeepers treat it's so important to them. And it's one of the hardest jobs. And as a general manager of several properties outside Disney, I have myself been in that shoe, where housekeeper to me is my top priority. How I treat them, how I love them, how I'm there for them, because it is one of the hardest jobs. But chapter 5 also speak a lot on selecting and retaining new talent. And that's where you tell the story about Blanca. And you also tell the story about Deb, which had no attraction experience whatsoever. But before we go into that story, you kind of say something, and you credit a lot of quotes. You used a lot of quotes from famous people, but some of the quotes you did not credit anybody. Well, I figure it had to be your own, which I now have that quote, and I'm going to say by Dan Cockerell, which is, "You can impart the right skills, not the right attitude." So tell me a little bit about that, and then talk about selecting and retaining new talent.
Sure. Yeah, well, selecting the right people to be in your company I think it's the most important thing a leader does, deciding on who do you want to be there. And at Disney, we recognize there's 3 things we look for when we hire people. skill, passion, and attitude. And we interview for those things. Now, most of the jobs we hire for at Disney, we're not really worried about the skills people have, because we're going to train people how to do those jobs. We're going to train you all how to work at Pirates of the Caribbean, or we're going to train you how to park cars or how to be a housekeeper. So we'll give you that training. So that's not as important. Passion, why do you want to work for this company? That's important to us. But by far, the most important thing, what we always ask about, is people's attitude. And the way we define attitude is people who have a great attitude, they overcome obstacles, they solve the problem, they're internally motivated. They just always working forward to find solutions to things. And I love people like that working for me, because people who have that attitude, they never give up. They're always look for a different way. If you put a barrier in front of them, they're going to find another way to get there, because they want to reach the goal. They're driven. And when you have people working for you like that, anything's possible. And so we, you can teach people skills, but I've seen it's very hard to teach people, or it's impossible to teach them attitude. They need to come with that. They have to decide how much they want to work and how motivated they are. And so we're always looking for those kind of people, because once you get them, the success of your business is just, there's no limit to what you can do.
Awesome. We got time, so I want to ask you about Deb. She came into your team. She was in charge of several attractions within the Magic Kingdom, but she never had attraction skills, and that's what you just talked about. But she had an amazing attitude. Tell us the story about that just a little bit. I don't want to give your book away, but those are the only two things out of the entire book.
Yeah. Well, our general manager, her name was Deb, and she worked in administrative support areas, and everyone agreed in order for her to be promoted, we had to see her in an operation and lead a team. And I gladly took her, and she was like a hurricane. And actually, when she reported to me, but when people asked me how Deb was doing, I'd always tell them, you know what, she's one of the best bosses I've ever had, because I couldn't even keep up with her. She was just came up with ideas. She always had high energy. She would get out in the operation, ask tons of questions. That's what a lot of leaders have trouble doing if they don't understand something. They don't want to ask questions because they don't want to look like they don't know what's going on. But great leaders are vulnerable, and they're willing to ask questions. They're willing to let their teams help them. And what Deb was great at was putting the right people in the right jobs. And once she did that, she would support them, and she got fantastic results. And she had the least operations experience on my team, but was the most successful, because she spent time focusing on the people. And the more she focused on people, the more productive they were, the more energized they were, and the better results she got. So it's sometimes as a leader, we think we have to do all the work. We don't have to do all the work. We just have to support the people who are getting the work done. And if they feel valued, they feel supported and respected, they will get a lot of great work done for you. So that's a leader's number one job. And that's what culture is. You create a culture where people feel like they're being valued. And once you do that, the whole place takes off.
That's one of the biggest thing about Disney culture. Is everybody asks me, you always talk about Disney culture. It's the value that they give to every single employee. And it's not only the 70,000, 76,000 employee we had, recently in January, but is the 280,000 throughout the world that Walt Disney employed. But now let's focus on chapter 6. I just want you to tell me about chapter 6. I loved it. I don't want to talk about it. It's just a little bit relationship. That is something the Latin American market lack on, building that relationship with their employee. Either they're in too much power, or they don't want to mix their levels of employee in the relationship.
Yeah. A lot of cultures and companies have hierarchy, and there's only a certain people you can talk to. And hierarchy is good. You need hierarchy to organize your company. But when it comes to relationships, if the senior people in an organization can role model and show that they're willing to talk to everybody and they value everybody, that starts to become the culture, and people start to realize that everyone contributes to the value of the company. It's not just the senior executives, it's everybody contributing. And that's what we saw at Disney. And so I would spend time every day. I'd be out walking around the park, talking to employees, asking them how they were doing, seeing if there's something that they needed help with or something we could improve upon. I would go to the cafeteria regularly and have lunch with frontline employees and frontline managers and talk about things. At first they were like, they didn't know why I was there. They were a little nervous, but after a while they start to realize I was there because I really was interested in what was going on with them, and I'd come back with great ideas. I put posters around the property and told everyone my phone number. I said, if you ever want to talk to me, here's my number. You can call me directly. I'm not saying you need to call me for everything because you have great managers, but if you feel like you don't know who to call, you're not sure how to handle something, call me, and I'd love to hear from you. And I got a couple calls a week from people, and they had questions, they had issues, they had suggestions. And some people told me, Dan, you're crazy. Why would you give everyone your phone number? What if you get 100 calls a week? I said, well, if I get 100 calls a week, then we got a big problem. Why would 100 calls a week come in? It means we got things we need to deal with. So sometimes I think leaders think, if I don't hear about something, it's not a problem. Well, yeah, there's lots of problems out there, and you can choose to engage and learn about them, or you can choose to ignore them. At the end of the day, it's still impacting your customer experience. I'd rather know about it than not know about it.
That's an amazing, wow, and that's why I wanted to talk about it, because as a leader, sometimes we as cast member, we're like, oh, that's the vice president walking down, let's tidy up. And I'm telling you from operations point of view, but we forgot that's Dan. Dan is amazing. He'll come, he'll hug you, he'll shake your hands, he'll ask you how you're doing, he'll ask if there's anything I could do for you. And that's what I loved about when I worked at Magic Kingdom, where, when the VPs will walk by, and when, even Lee Cockerell will walk by, he will always up conversation with you. And, it's not like, oh, the boss is coming, because you build that relationship where you feel like I'm doing my job and he's going to care for what if I'm doing my job. Thanks for that.
Yep.
And chapter 14 is the last one that I chose, because this is something that is on everybody's mind right now. I feel like because of this uncertainty time that we live in right now, it's a sweeping. A lot of companies are sweeping out the dirt. And that goes for people who need the development, the people that are missing that development. And you talk about that on chapter 14, the long game, the emerging leaders, and talk to us about a little bit of chapter 14 on the book of development.
Yeah, well, I think there's two different things that people get confused that companies offer, and people use these interchangeably: training and development. And these are different things. We all get training. Training is things the company wants you to know so you can do your job. You get trained on a new procedure, you get trained on a new software program, you're getting updated so you can do your job. That's one thing. Development is something totally differently. Development is basically the company or you improving yourself so you can improve your career, you can improve your performance over time. And while a lot of people get trained, they don't often get developed. And development is such an important part of building great morale. It shows people you care about them, you're willing to invest in them, and it retains people. Your best performers, they can leave tomorrow and they have 5 jobs they can go get. Those are the people you want to keep developing, because your best people are the ones you want to hold on to, and it's a great retention strategy. So I would just recommend to people, make sure everyone on your team, or maybe the most important people that do the best job, make sure you're constantly getting them opportunities to learn. You're sending them maybe to a class. You're giving them opportunities to do different things, because A, they're going to be motivated by that. B, they're going to feel like they're getting some more value. And someday when it's time to take over your job, you need someone around who can do that job. And those people, you're preparing your replacement so you can go do something else. So that development is such an important piece. And when we get busy, it's something we easily skip over. We don't spend time on it, but long term, it'll hurt you if you don't have a great development program for your team.
I love that. I love that you said, it's, a lot of people are doing training right now, but the true word is developing. It got to be that development on your skills, so you could become an emerging leader, as the word you used in the book.
That's right.
Well, then those are my 3. I love the whole book again. I can't stop it. It's amazing. I'm talking about it so much. But those were the 3 chapters I chose for you to bring out. You guys gotta grab it, but you gotta tell us something. I know this is getting translated. Talk to us about having it in
Yes.
Spanish, en castellano, como dice la gente, más dígame, ¿cuándo va a salir el libro en español?
Muy temprano. Muy pronto. We're working on that right now. The publisher has so far in Portuguese and Vietnamese. I just got an email that they're going to translate it for audiences in Vietnam. But we are working on getting it translated to Spanish right now because we know that's a big market for us. And I'm hoping by early of 2021 we'll have it out in Spanish. So you can check back with me, Frank. Keep on me about that.
I'm going to keep on you because what I'm going to start doing now, you know, not only the fact that you already have this book as a university credited course, I'm going to also use this book on some of the course that I do. And that to me is excited to see that you have it all planned out so easy. I have one more question here because it's a funny question. And every time I do an interview as a cast member, the first thing I get asked by people is, what magical memory have I ever created? So I'm going to put you in a spot and I will ask you, what is your magical memories that you have created throughout your 26 years with the Walt Disney World Company?
Yeah, well, I've created a lot, but one of my favorites, when I first got to Magic Kingdom, it was a park that didn't serve any beer or any wine, right? It's a dry park because that's the way Walt Disney wanted it. And if you go today, you can get a glass of beer or a glass of wine at a table service restaurant. But I'd be walking around the park, and usually it was a guest from the UK. And they would say, hey, mate, where can I get a pint? You know, it's so hot here, and I'm just looking for a beer. And I'd always tell them they could take the monorail to the Contemporary around the corner. Finally, one day I said, you know what? I'm going to create my own magical memory. And so I created, I got a little refrigerator, put beer in it, and put it in my office. And when I met that guest who was looking for a beer, I'd say, look, tell your family you just met the vice president of the park and he's taking you on a private tour for 30 minutes. So he'd tell the family and they'd nod. I'd take them and we'd go up to my office and I'd open a cold beer, and I was working, so I just drank a Diet Coke. But we would chat and he'd have his pint, get a nice cold beer, we'd shake hands, and I'd take him back to his family and everything was good. That was my magical moment. And you know, we all get to participate, and that was one of my favorite ones.
Oh, wow. So guests got to go to the vice president office. What was your office anyway?
It was above Starbucks. Above Starbucks. Yeah.
Above Starbucks? That okay. I used to think it was by the train station.
Yeah, above Starbucks. So that was always a fun thing to do, and it was always surprising to them. But I always thought it was kind of a cool thing to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I know Valerie's not here. I would love for you to talk about Valerie a little bit because her story is really fun. And I know you guys lived in France. Parlez-vous français muy bien? And your kids have French citizenship. I love the fact that we, you know, like my mom is Brazilian, my dad's Italian. We have this multicultural of different citizenship. And that's what I love about Disney, the diversity that Disney have of people of all walks of life that got to work in Tokyo, in Japan, in Paris. Some people went to Shanghai right before it opened. And that's what's awesome about Disney, that they let you have that experience to go aboard to work on those parks. Tell me a little bit of your experience in Paris, in Disneyland Paris.
Yeah, well, you know, Valerie grew up in the south of France in Lyon, and she ended up working on the fellowship program at Epcot in 1987 at Epcot. So she represented the French Pavilion, did that for a year, and then she actually took a Greyhound bus across the United States and took the train down to Mexico City and lived there for a while. So she speaks Spanish fluently, and she really loves traveling. And then they called her back a few years later when they were opening Disneyland Paris and said, look, you've worked for Disney before. Are you interested in working in France? And so she said, yes. So we met training in Florida, and then we moved to France. We had a 5-week engagement because I had to get my green card and stay. So we had a quick wedding, and we stayed there for 5 years. And it changed my life. The fact being a foreigner living in another country, learning another language, learning another culture was just incredible. And it changed my outlook on the world. And now, I want to go everywhere because the world is such an interesting place and you learn so many things from people. And so Valerie and I are pretty open-minded when it comes to travel. We've spent time working now. We've been in Thailand. We were in Peru just before the pandemic doing some work down there. We did some work in Croatia. So we're pretty open to going anywhere because we don't really get intimidated anymore because we're willing to, meet people from other cultures and find ways to help them.
As a matter of fact, since you mentioned you went to Peru, I know it was Cusco and Machu Picchu. You actually were consulting the people there to bring in the culture and hospitality experience, because I've been to Cusco, and when you go up there, there's no hospitality whatsoever. You just get yourself around and hike the Machu Picchu. But how did that go? I mean, I know you were doing that prior for me meeting you one time.
Sure. Yeah, it's like everything else. We went there for a week, and it was a train company we were working for, and we did mystery shopping. We rode trains back and forth for a week, and we just looked at the service. We bought tickets. We went online and purchased. We went through the whole process of what a consumer goes through. And so by the end of that week, we had a really good idea of what they were doing well and where they could make improvements and where they could make more money. And then we went back a couple months later and did work with their team. And we actually met with frontline employees, frontline managers to talk to them about their jobs. And they had so many ideas about how to make improvements. And then we gave them a bunch of ideas. And then the pandemic came. We were supposed to go back 2 more times. So hopefully when this is over, we'll be back there. But a lot of this, I would say part of it is common sense, and part of it is, having the Disney background and the experience and the framework. I mean, how you get trained at Disney. You get trained to look at things very objectively, and there's always improvements that can be made. And as we believed at Walt Disney World, you're never done improving. You can always be better. Every day you can make improvements, and as long as you have that mindset, you'll be a successful company.
That's so awesome. And just one last thing, out of all the books you have read, because I'm sure you read a lot of books prior to writing your book, and I'm talking about the Disney's books, you have so many. What is one of your all-time favorite book that is all about the Walt legacy?
Gosh, I don't know if I have a favorite book about Disney. I mean, I've always been interested in learning about his original vision, being an animator and wanting to create these 3-dimensional place called a theme park. That was such a new idea at the time, and how he thought about hospitality and how he thought about exceeding expectations and creating value. Every book I sell now, I sign every single one because I want people always to get a little extra. And that's what we learned at Disney over time. You always deliver a little bit of extra. But of course, if I had to go with any books, Lee has some pretty great books out there about working for the
Yeah, that's come on, Creating Magic. That is my favorite. Yeah, that's the first one. So we love that. It's. I mean, I can't stop teaching about that book with all the people I work with, and I think everybody that's in this broadcast right now have already read Ponga Magia en tu Empresa or Creating Magic. It's just a fantastic book, and I take your hats out for that. But one of my second favorite is Walt Disney, an American Original. That is a really good book too. But other than that, Dan, I mean, it's all yours. Close us with something awesome. And I'm done asking you a question. I'm excited. Tell us how we could get your book. Tell us what we need to do. I know there's a lot of people from Latin America here, and Amazon is probably the only channel of distribution they might have, but it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. Amazon is where you can find it. The audiobook should be available within the next couple weeks, I hope. We recorded it already, and they're working on getting it online. And like I said, we're working hard to get the Spanish version published. Like I said, Valerie and I, we travel. We've done work in Argentina. We've done some work in Brazil. We're doing work in Mexico. So we are, like I said, we really like South America, and we enjoy the culture down there. And if you go to our website, it's cockerellconsulting.com, and our first name consulting.com. And I do a weekly podcast called Come Rain or Shine. We have about 104 episodes now done. I send out an article every Friday for free to anyone who wants to receive an article of the week and just learn about leadership or something new. And everything we're doing, you can find there. We have videos, we have contact information, and we put everything there. So cockerellconsulting.com if you want to reach out and ever contact us.
And if people want to do like the course, the credit university course that you mentioned earlier on, is it something that is there a place? Is it something that you want to leave there for next time? Maybe we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we're testing that right now. We're testing it at a couple of universities and getting it home. It's all electronic. You buy it online, you get the book, you get the student workbook, and it takes you through. We just need colleges to, if you have a college you think should be offering it, let us know and we'll reach out to them. It's a turnkey course. It's got 13 weeks of content. It's got a midterm exam, a final exam, reading quizzes, case studies. So we put a lot of work into it, and it's like I said, it's based on the book we wrote. So if you're interested in that, you can email us, and we'd love to talk to you about it.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up. I thank you. I know you just moved. I know you told me, Frank, I just moved, and you've been planning this for a while.
Right.
To me, that's amazing that you finally are. The right word is that you guys are alone now, right? You guys are. You don't have a bunch of kids with you anymore, so you got that loneliness.
Some days we're happy and some days we're sad. It just depends on the day.
I'm trying to get there because I want to kick all my kids out of the house, but then I'm I'm like, I don't want to be sad. But I know you heading out to Colorado. Amazing. Denver, right?
Yes, that's right.
That's an amazing place. And I just want to thank you for the space, for the time, for coming on, for sending me the book, for letting me just read it. It's amazing. Guillermo put in your Instagram account. I know you put in things in different language sometimes, and follow your podcast. You send out an email every week of leadership, because I get it, every week, leadership email with things for you to read and wrap your mind around it. And man, keep it up. Congratulations. I love the book. You did awesome. It took time, but it came out perfect.
I need to read. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you, Frank, for the interview. It was an honor to have you here, Mr. Dan Cockerell. It is very genuine from you to share your experience with us. We think that today is the right time for inspiration, because the situation, especially for leaders, they need to learn from leaders as you. So we are so grateful for your time here in Ubiquo, and I think we can learn a lot from your book. So I will share again the name of your book and your Instagram. Let me see if I can hear.
Thank you, Guillermo. Give me 1 second. So we have a good friend of ours on this, and while we were interviewing it, he created a whole character of you and I. So could you give me the share, Guillermo?
Of course.
Could you give me the share control for a second? Just send it to me. Give me 1 second. You're gonna like this. This is fun. We're almost done here.
Wait just a second. Yes. You can present it right now. You can share your screen.
I can share my screen. You're the man.
Yes,
hold on.
You can.
All right. Hold on. Wow. And this is exactly what he sent to us. I don't know if you could see it.
Oh my. Good. This is Disney. This is magic.
That's cool. Very cool.
So while we were doing the interview, he went and he created this. I'm gonna send it to you, Dan.
That's called talent right there. Yeah.
That's awesome. Talent. Throughout this last 45 minutes, we've been talking. He did this. Thank you so much, Eduardo. You're the best. And this is really cool. Thank you, guys. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so we can say goodbye. And thank you again. Thank you, Dan. I'll talk to you soon. Big hugs for Dad and Valerie. And just, miss you guys and hope to see you guys soon.
All right, Guillermo, Frank, thanks, and everyone be safe. Thanks.
Thank you so much for the time. Thank you, guys. Thank you, student, for being here. Great interview. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.